Greetings and happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Random Access Memory Lane. Today, we revisit the 90s with Captain Commando, a game released in 1991 by Capcom featuring 4 unique characters, questionable yet interesting enemy designs, and our favorite items, anything that's been on the floor. An interesting note is that this game was Capcom's first attempt at joining the Mascot Wars of the video game market, then dominated by Nintendo's Mario and Sega's Sonic. Capcom, instead of using Ryu from Street Fighter or Mega Man, decided to come up with an entirely new character and join the brawl. Another little fun fact for those of you who have had old Capcom games, Captain Commando was on the booklet for many games released from 1986 to 1988, featuring a special congratulatory message for you buying the game. So, without further ado, let's ride that quarter back into nostalgia. I'm June, and I'll be your guide throughout Captain Commando. Alright, now let's talk about some of our characters. Mummy Commando, also known as Mac the Knife, Captain Commando, Ninja Commando, also known as Ginzu, and Baby Commando. Strangely enough, Baby Commando is named Hoover in the Japanese release, like, you know, a Hoover vacuum cleaner. But I digress. Some of the best character designs Capcom has to offer, really, in my opinion. Especially compared to a lot of the stuff they've been releasing lately. Perhaps it's time to bring back some of the craziness of the 90s back into the company. I personally think that would actually be a pretty good idea, giving the players something that's not very generic. No offense, Capcom, but seriously, I'm pretty sure the new Strider game did pretty well, so maybe give Captain Commando and the gang a chance. As far as your enemies are concerned, really, it's your typical goon fest. Same looking guys come up on the screen with the same name. They want to punch you. You punch them in order to stay alive, occasionally throwing out a super attack by pressing punch and jump together. And of course, our favorite things in the world, floor items, make a triumphant return, as always. And if you'll notice, that's a power armor. For, you know, like the ride armor from Mega Man X. Captain Commando was actually the first game that I know of from Capcom that actually had those. Now, as far as the bosses are concerned, they always do have a unique sprite, so to speak. There's really no 2 bosses that are exactly the same, I believe, minus the one boss in one of the later stages. That's basically a recolor of the Stage 2 boss. But aside from that, every boss has their own sprite and is not shared by any means. The henchmen, on the other hand, will always look like each other. So you got your Eddies, you got your Dicks, you got your Wookiees. Same looking guys, different color, different hats. Dick is also a very mean man shooting a baby with a gun, but I digress. The Baby Commando is also one of my favorites. I don't know, he's actually the only character in this game who's able to pile drive their enemies, because, you know, Hagar can do it, everybody can do it. As far as the music is concerned, it's pretty good, you know, upbeat, very springy, keeps you entertained while you're going. And the control scheme itself is not bad either. They're very responsive. You can run in any direction you want by tapping the joystick twice towards any direction you choose. And you can actually do combos while moving, so long as you're holding a certain direction as you throw out your punches. Now, interesting enough to note is that Captain Commando was also one of the few games back in the day that featured female enemies that you can fight. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with this, but for example, Final Fight actually had to get censored for the home console release, I believe, because punching Poison, who was quote-unquote at the time a woman, was not acceptable by Nintendo standards. But this is the arcade version, the US arcade version of Captain Commando, and as you've seen, we do have female enemies that we can fight. And for some reason, this was not censored, which is very interesting. I'm guessing perhaps if you want to publish a game on a Nintendo console, you just gotta keep it family friendly. Who knows? But yes, a lot of your same generic goons here. Shirtless caveman named Samson in what seems to be torn leather pants? Is that what it is? Torn leather pants? I'm not quite sure. And again, the bosses are very unique. This is Strom Jr. I believe you get to fight Strom Sr. later in the game. I believe around stage 6? 5 or 6. Don't don't quote me on that. But yes, the movement is very accurate for the most part. You definitely know where you're going. Your character is definitely very responsive. The dashes are good. And of course, the only thing that I really don't like is the fact, and this is of course asking a little too much here, is just that you're not able to block a lot of the attacks. In some of the later games, like Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows of Mystara, you'll actually be able to block with certain characters, which is definitely a very cool concept. As far as the stage designs are concerned, I mean, there's really not a lot to talk about as far as the stages are concerned. You know, you have the museum, you have the ninja house, as this stage is known, that we're playing the Ninja Commando on. And also, a little trivia over here, Capcom actually puts their logo pretty much everywhere in the game's scenery. So, you know, not only is Captain Commando a game for the Capcom mascot, Captain Commando, the game itself, is also a huge advertisement for Capcom. Smart move on their part, really. And again, as mentioned before, a lot of female enemies. And, you know, there really are a lot of memorable enemies in this game. So, for example, we're just going to keep going forward. Destroy a tree because Ninja Commando just does not care for the environment. So, for example, this guy over here, he's a giant suit of armor and he is simply named Musashi. Now, I'm not quite sure what they were called in the original Japanese version, but I can tell you that's pretty good. Keeping with the Japanese theme over here, as far as the whole thing is concerned. And you have your ninjas that you're fighting, like Kojiro and Sasuke. For you Samurai Warriors fans and your Sengoku Basara fans, this probably, you know, tickles you just in the right spot, I'm hoping. But yes, a lot of the moves are basically the same, different properties, but are executed just like each other. Most of the characters do have same properties on their attacks. The only differences, I believe, are Captain Commando's flamethrower having a little longer range than most attacks. And this game has star wipes everywhere. Any kind of transition change is a star wipe. And here we go. This is exactly what I was talking about. Remember when we said palette swaps? Look at this. We have Hanzo, like Hattori Hanzo. We have Kojiro, and we have Sasuke. Or Red Ninja, Green Ninja, Blue Ninja. And of course, you know, you can't really blame this on Capcom. This was actually mostly caused due to the hardware limitations of the 90s. And of course, things will definitely get better along the way. And eventually, you'll have side-scrolling games where I suppose palette swaps were not as prevalent as before. And again, the bosses are usually pretty memorable. Like, look at this guy. It's a giant Oni, rocking pink hair, with a huge Naginata named Yamato. Seriously, Capcom, just get a little crazy with yourself, you know. I'm not advocating anything illegal, but please just let your creativity flow. You know, let your design team have a few shots of the good stuff, and then just, you know, go to town on a sketch pad, because I miss enemy design like this from back in the day. A big, giant, muscular guy in a pink wig with a Naginata, jumping around, smacking you. This is what made 90s gaming so great. Oh, and for those of you wondering, yes, grabs are actually super effective in these games. Because during the throw animation, you are invincible. And yes, as you've seen, just because you're the good guy doesn't mean you're safe from getting chopped in half. Alright, so we're just going to go and watch the rest of this boss fight here. And just a quick disclaimer, guys, this is actually going to be one of my shorter videos. If you wanted to see the whole playthrough of Captain Commando, they are up on my Twitch channel. Please check the link in the description below if you want to see the entire gameplay. This was more of a review slash first look for those of you who have not had a chance to play a game like Captain Commando. And of course, as you can see here, some really cool items too. Like, you know, look at the little laser gun right there. And this is a circus. This is back when clowns were not terrifying, I suppose. All right, so you have dicks with missile launchers. Capcom, really? Dick? I got nothing to say on that part, I suppose. Oh, and of course the arena stages. I'm not sure how many of you play Final Fight, but Final Fight also had an arena stage. Capcom, you know, back in the day, I guess they had a tendency of playing it safe, sticking with what they know, but even then, these games were pretty awesome. And those are the desperation attacks that we were mentioning earlier, punch and jump together. And yes, you saw that right, that guy just decomposed in front of your eyes because he got stabbed by the Mummy Commando's knives. Seriously, Capcom, just give us like an HD remake of Captain Commando. At least I'll buy it. I don't know about other people, but hopefully they will too. And look at that, an evil scientist and a muscular guy who turned into a muscular monster. Aptly named Monster. He's actually one of the worst bosses you can fight in this game, mainly because he's got an incredibly long reach and he'll kill you in about 3 hits, if I remember correctly. If you have Captain Commando, you can also kind of cheat the game a little bit by just doing the running flamethrower attack over and over again, but it will take a while for you to bring him down. You know, seriously, he's like a spawn of Hulk and Blanca if they made Sweet Sweet Love in like a radioactive waste field. I'm sorry for those of you who just cringed at that mental image. Look at that, even when you die, star wipe, star wipe, star wipe. Another little fun fact, missile launchers, if you can have them for a boss fight, it is definitely encouraged that you keep them. Missiles do hurt the most out of all the weapons in this game. Oh, look at that, that's Hagar from Final Fight as a trophy. So missiles are definitely encouraged for you to keep during a boss fight. Definitely makes life a little bit easier. Man. He really is a monster, isn't he? Hits like a monster, that's definite. But yes, this is Captain Commando, one of my favorite games from the 90s, and hopefully you guys will have a chance to play it too. This has been available in many forms. I know that there was a Capcom Classics disc on the PS2 that contained this game. So definitely, if you guys have a chance to give this game a try, one of the best games of the 90s that I got to play, and it does also support up to 4 players, so definitely go ahead and check this game out.